and people are coming in.
When I hear that little bell, is that another person coming
No,
online?
that is, no, ignore the little bell.
Okay.
It's not 9 o'clock yet. But it's 9 o'clock now, so we can get started.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Our meeting will begin with the playing of the national anthem, and Frank will key that up.
Okay. As you can see, it's frozen. Why is that?
Morning. I'm back about the roof. Yeah. Any shots to get the roof open? Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. And, you know, I like that piece because it still reminds us that we are the United States.
Yeah, that's a great video. It's sort of sad that it's branded Democratic because I don't want to. I wish it was more, not one-sided in terms of the branding, but they did a great job.
I don't see why it would be called anything partisan.
It was created for the Democratic National Convention. Did you notice that at the bottom?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I want to recognize our sponsors. We have wonderful sponsors for this program. It's our premier sponsors that sponsor every year, for the annual is Toomey, Latham, Shea, Kelly, Dubin, and Quantoro. They're a very prestigious law firm. And we have Gershow Recycling, a very conscientious member of the community who try to do things in the best possible way for the community. The Lewis Joes Veely's law firm and Covent Energy are also our premier sponsors. Lewis Joes is a very prestigious law firm as well. And we will have, the way we will continue this, we will have our speaker introduce the program and, make a statement as to where she would like to go. And later our host will enter into conversation. But we want to recognize our program sponsors right now, starting with the Habitat for Humanity from Long Island, Lee, will you introduce yourself?
Hold on, Lee, I'm gonna unmute you. I'm sorry, I muted everyone before.
Good morning. I'm Lee Silberman, the CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Suffolk County. I'm pleased to be the program sponsor today in recognition of the town of Islip and Angie Carpenter. A few weeks ago, we just dedicated our 50th home that we have built in the town of Islip. We have 2 homes under construction, 2 more homes under construction now in the town, and we should be building 1 or 2 next year as well. And I definitely want to thank Supervisor Carpenter for all of her support for our organization. I also want to announce we were recently awarded a $100,000 matching grant from Island Outreach. So I am going to put our donation link into the chat so that hopefully some of you will be, would like to make a year-end donation to Habitat so we can continue the work we do to help solve the affordable housing crisis in Suffolk County. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to give credit to Carpenter Energy. Is a representative from Carpenter there, or otherwise I will read from it. Okay, Carpenter Energy is an innovative company that produces electric energy by processing and burning waste material that would otherwise be trucked off Long Island. In the process, they reclaim valuable metals that would end up in a landfill. And I've inspected those plants over the years, and I was so impressed with John Waffenschmidt, who designed most of the systems there. And he was a wonderful environmental engineer. He's no longer with us, but those plants were designed by him, and they were remarkably efficient and clean, and took a lot of diesel smoke off our highways and a lot of wear and tear off our highways. So I want to thank them. Now, Angie Carpenter is our speaker today, and Angie has been in the public eye for many, many years. I think you were a legislator originally, right, Angie?
Right. Actually, my real claim to fame is that I started and ran a business for many years, and then I got into government. But yes, I started as a county legislator. And
then you've been a supervisor of the town of Islip for how long now?
I've been supervisor since 2015, and in between there, I had a stint as Suffolk County Treasurer for 9 years after I left nearly 13 years on the county legislature.
What we know about Angie is that she's conscientious and working for the people, and we appreciate that. And on Long Island, where we have the 2 major parties, those parties are not so important as to the quality of the people who serve. And we who tend to be more liberal vote for people who are not, because of the quality of the people that we're addressing. And you've known me for a long time, Angie, and I've been fair in that regard. So today I'd like you to, our audience, to pay attention to Angie as she tells us, makes our opening remarks, and then we'll get into the conversation. Good morning, Angie.
Good morning. And it is so nice to see some friends up on the screen, though virtually. Charlie, how are you? And thank you to all of the sponsors that have stayed with LIMBA. I know that we were chatting earlier, waiting for this to begin, and Ernie was saying how difficult it is, during these COVID times for, organizations, not-for-profits to keep doing the good work that they're doing. And LIMBA's mission in keeping the business community cohesive and informed is really, really important, and probably no more important than it has been these past months since this pandemic all began. And so I can't help but not make reference to it, because it certainly has altered the way we do business here at the town of Islip. But I think the important thing I want everyone to remember is that throughout this whole terrible pandemic, we still have done business here in the town of Islip. It was very important to us that even though the governor has issued mandate after mandate, and we have been, COVID compliant every step of the way as far as, mandating a 50% working from home, which is kind of difficult to do when you're running a municipality. It's kind of hard to pave roads and fill potholes from home, but we've managed. And certainly our planning department from day one devised a system so that we could keep reviewing permits and plans, issuing permits and reviewing site plans. And they have a drop box, and the buildings still are closed to the public, but we still are doing business. And it is so important to do that for a number of reasons. There's a ripple effect. If we aren't issuing the permits and reviewing the plans and helping keep development going, it has a negative ripple effect. So, having said that, we did keep things going, but certainly not at the pace that they were going. And that has negatively impacted us from the revenue side of the town. And that's been difficult.
Your sales tax has got to be very much decreased.
No. Let's clear that up right away. Unlike some towns in the state of New York, on Long Island, specifically Suffolk County, we do not get 1 penny of sales tax. And that's a bone I have that I pick at often, because by providing the venues for businesses to be operating and successful, making sure the roads are paved and the streets and the sidewalks are clear and, during the snowstorms, et cetera. But if businesses can't operate properly and generate that sales tax revenue, it negatively impacts those that receive it. And the sales tax is split 50-50 between the state of New York and the county of Suffolk. So as much as many of the town supervisors have been advocating for revenue sharing on the part of the counties with the sales tax, that's not looking very likely. In fact,
is it a good thing that they don't, because you don't have that fluctuating revenue stream?
Well, we wouldn't be totally dependent, but as the county is very, very dependent on the sales tax. But I'm talking about a modest, sharing of the sales tax, whether it be 0.25%, or there is revenue sharing for the towns and villages that have police functions. If a town or a village has their police department, then they get revenue sharing from the county, from the sales tax. But it is, not a tremendous amount of money. The village of Ocean Beach, which has a police department that operates year round, it peaks in the summertime. They have 4 full-time officers and 28 part-time officers in the summer. They probably get about less than $100,000. So I'm not talking about a tremendous amount of money, but at least some acknowledgement of the fact that the towns and the villages help create the venues so that they can generate sales tax.
I saw something that should be cleared up. You're experiencing a 6% tax increase on property taxes. Now that sounds pretty onerous.
No. Stop right there. There's another bone we have to pick, and that's with Newsday. They seem to like to sensationalize every headline. And though we worked very, very hard on the budget and, told department heads, we've been working on the budget since June. That's when the letters go out to the department heads, come in with your budget request. And this year we made it abundantly clear we wouldn't even accept any requests if they had anything more than 0. It had to be flat. You had to, find a way. If anything, I would appreciate it if you find some ways to cut. And the department heads were very compliant. But despite that, because of the loss in revenue, permits, the fact that we've got diminished revenues from the state, they've announced that we're going to have a 20% cut in state aid. We're going to have a 20% cut in 8 municipalities. So that alone translates to about $1 million between those two lines. The increased expenses because of COVID, the guidelines that we're required to follow, which, you know, obviously we have no problem doing, but there's a cost associated with that. If someone comes down and tests positive for COVID, we have to send the team in to totally sanitize that office or that workspace, those restrooms, et cetera. The level of sanitizing and cleaning that is done in the town has certainly been increased because of COVID. All the touch points, railings, doorknobs, et cetera, conference room tables, chairs, that's done on a routine basis now.
Angie, getting back to what I was starting to say was that the thing I read was if you have a $400,000 valued house, it may result in $33.51 a year increase. That does not sound onerous to me. Is that correct?
Well, I appreciate that. Excuse me, let me just turn this off. I do appreciate that, and that's exactly what we were hoping people would understand. It was 6%, but 6% of the town portion across the three funds, not your entire tax bill. And, you know, having that discussion with Newsday, they're like, oh, well, people will read the article. They don't always read the article because we got a number of phone calls and emails, and I was on the phone, you know, quite a bit yesterday with people explaining that. And when you do explain the situation and the dilemma, because everybody is faced with it, they understand, you know, to a person, it was, well, thank you for explaining it. I understand $33 is reasonable. I mean, we could have engaged in smoke and mirrors and tried to, you know, run around saying, oh, we're not increasing taxes, it's 0%. But next year would have been a disaster. You know, I don't think laying people off is the answer. I don't think totally defunding every vacant position is the answer. Certainly, we did not fund vacant positions the way we might normally have done, knowing full well that, you know, there is a bit of a freeze on hiring. But, you know, we have to operate, we have to deliver services. And I do, you know, hope that everyone, as you said, understands that $33 is reasonable. And that's $33 a year.
Ken Greenberg, did you have a question?
I'm going to ask Ken to unmute.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ken. Do it again. My fault. I think I accidentally toggled you back. There we go.
You could have just read it. But question for Angie. So is there anything specific the town does to coordinate with the hospital systems that are located in the town and you know, medical centers or providers, you know, for the pandemic? Any extra steps that you take to work with them, or you kind of leave it to them?
Actually, you know, we're very blessed in the town of Islip that we have two incredible hospitals, both Good Samaritan Hospital and South Shore University Hospital, as Southside has renamed itself recently, part of the Northwell system. We have worked very closely with them in, you know, PPE distribution and things like that on a routine basis. I mean, Good Samaritan Hospital just came in here and did flu shots for our employees. We felt it was very important to, you know, make those shots as accessible as possible and hammer home the message that this year especially, it certainly isn't going to prevent COVID, but the last thing somebody wants is COVID and the flu. So, you know, we were able to do that, and we are working closely. There's going to be an announcement next week sometime, possibly, that we'll be able to do some testing at the airport. So that's kind of premature and not for public information at this point. But to your question, Ken, of working with the hospitals, we do. I have a radio show, and we broadcast it on our public access channel. And I've had the director of emergency services. We did, in the very beginning, we did a panel discussion with infectious disease specialists from the hospitals, trying to, you know, get that message out there in the beginning, how important it was to follow the rules, wear your mask, wash your hands, you know, we really took this very, very seriously and continue to do so. And the hospitals have been tremendous partners in that endeavor.
Super, thank you.
You know, I wanted to ask you about the school systems. How much does, you know, I'm sure it's costing more money to operate the schools, even though we don't even have the some of them working fully. Does that impact the finances of the village, the town rather?
There's no direct correlation. You know, I'm not quite sure that certainly the sanitizing that has to be done, I can appreciate that those expenses are going to be higher. The schools were closed for quite a number of months, you know, so the cost associated with operating those buildings certainly was diminished for the period of time. And even now, many of them are, you know, just on a hybrid model where the kids are only going in 2 days a week and, you know, doing it virtually from home the other 3 days. But as far as there being a direct correlation on the finances of the town and the schools, there really is no nexus there.
What do you see as your biggest problem right now?
Oh dear, I guess the pandemic and the uncertainty that this has brought. You know, even in the budget process, trying to plan for next year, anticipating what our costs would be. We did find out from the state that pension costs were going up. We could not get a definite number on what the increase was going to be for healthcare. I mean, I actually had a conversation with the New York State Controller. He put his deputy on it. We talked to, you know, Association of Towns and anyone that we thought could get that information. So we're basically, you know, we put in a guesstimate of what we thought the increase would be and hoping that we're right or hoping that we overestimated. But I guess that's the biggest challenge, the uncertainty of what COVID has delivered to all of us. You just don't know from one day to the next. You know,
do we have any other questions from other people?
I had a question, Angie. This is Frank Imburgio from Desktop Solutions. And I'm not a Central Islip resident, but I happened to have run into a friend a few days ago, and I asked what her question would be. And she's a lifelong CI resident, and she said that they're doing renovation at a psychiatric hospital location. Not just renovation, but revenue producing. She's thinking that will bring in money for the town. And if so, specifically, would that money get put back to Central Islip? Is really her question.
She's very, very astute. It's a very tremendously exciting time for Central Islip, and I'm glad you brought that up because I totally forgot about the fact that pre-COVID, when we were cooking on all fours and you know, working very closely with the economic development community, we were able to secure a $10 million grant, a DRI, the Downtown Revitalization Grant for Central Islip. We had applied for that grant 3 times. It was a 3-year program. I think it's in suspension right now because of COVID. But the first year it went to Westbury. The second year it went to Hicksville. And I was like determined that we were going to get it, you know, and I can remember sitting before the panel and saying, you know, they closed with, well, do you have any closing, you know, remarks you'd like to make? And I said, yes, pick us, because if not, I'm going to have to come back again next year. So I guess they were tired of seeing us, and we did get the $10 million. And it's for the corridor on Carlton Avenue that goes from Suffolk Avenue south to Smith Street. And where Smith Street is heading south is where you see that expansive green space for Park Row and the new shopping center that was put in a number of years ago. On the left, you have 87 acres that was New York Institute of Technology for many years. And prior to that was the grounds of Central Islip State Hospital. That was purchased by a developer who initially wanted to have a mixed use with industrial and retail and warehouse and some residential, and met with the community and got feedback from the community that they really wanted to see more residential. They went back to the drawing board and came back with a plan that has been approved and is, you know, in the works right now.
Are we speaking about the Walkoff property?
No, we're not talking about Walkoff. We're talking about Steel Equities, and the Marcus organization purchased 87 acres, and they've submitted a proposal to the town to develop 83 of those acres, reusing every single existing building. They're only going to be constructing one new building, like a community center with all of the amenities you would want in a community like that. It's going to be 380 units, I believe. I may be off on the number, but the density is far below what it could be. They are retrofitting every building, awnings. I mean, the renderings are beautiful, landscaping. There'll be estate fencing around the perimeter of it. It really will give Central Islip, when you're coming into it, just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And the fact that they're reusing those buildings, you're not going to have the, you know, construction and demolition debris. You're not going to have the vast negative impact that can come into a community when you're taking down all of those buildings and trucking away all of that debris. It just is very exciting. And to the point of what Frank was asking, those 87 acres were off the tax rolls all these years. When it was a hospital and then when it was an educational institution, now it's going back on the tax rolls. So that is a tremendous, tremendous benefit for the Central Islip community, because believe it or not, Central Islip, we have homestead and non-homestead rates in the town of Islip, so that the residential community and the business community are taxed at two different rates. The non-homestead rate for a house in Central Islip is the same as Bayport and higher than any other hamlet in the town. And the non-homestead rate, the commercial rate, is the highest of any hamlet in the town of Islip. And that is driven by the cost of education. It's a large district, and they've negotiated very, you know, healthy contracts over the years for their staff, their teachers, and that is reflected in what their tax rate is. So, you know, this is just very exciting when you're taking 87 acres and putting it on the tax rolls. I just couldn't be any happier.
But unfortunately, it's frozen due to COVID. As you said earlier, the plans are frozen. So
no, they're not. No, they're not. They're moving ahead. When I talked about frozen, I was talking about the program that the state has for the downtown revitalization program. I didn't hear anything about it this year, and I'm assuming it's because of COVID. I think there may have been one more recipient after us.
But this commercial development is moving ahead. Is there an ETA?
No. There's one area north that there are an assemblages of parcels that are going to be happening. The town has a parking lot there. The Community Development Agency has something. The Civic Association has something. So those parcels are going to be assembled, and there'll be an RFP for a developer to come in and hopefully come up with a multi-use kind of development there, mixed use, retail, residential, et cetera, to anchor the north end.
Well, I just want to give a shout out to my friend Kathy Machen. She's a librarian at Farmingdale State University and lifelong CI resident. She had a great question.
Well, it's an exciting, you know, time there, as I said. I mean, if you think about it, when you come in there, and they've had their struggles over the years in Central Islip because of the closing of the state hospital, and going back to like close to 40 years ago, when the town was very visionary at the time, and Frank Jones was a supervisor, God rest his soul, he passed away just past year, developed College Woods. I can't remember what the area was referred to as, but it was so horrible that even the police were afraid to go in there. The kind of criminal activity that took place there was unconscionable. He plowed that place down. They developed College Woods. That development is thriving. They put all the utilities underground. So when you drive through the community, you just have this sense of it being clean and open, and it's really, really lovely. And that was the first foray into affordable housing that the town really put, forward. In fact, it was received so well that it is in the congressional record. It was recognized because of that. And over the years, working with wonderful organizations like Habitat for Humanity, the Community Development Agency, we're one of a few towns that has their own community development agency, working with organizations like Habitat, have been able to take parcels that the county may have seized for non-payment of taxes and pass it on to the town. And then we are able to, see it go to someone like Habitat. In fact, at that last ribbon cutting, and if anyone ever has the opportunity to go to a ribbon cutting or be involved in a build and see a family come take occupancy of a home, there's nothing more heartwarming than that. A mom and her daughter, giving them the key and having them walk in and look and see this gorgeous new home. Really, there's nothing better than that. But Lee mentioned to me that they were starting to run out of parcels. And Lee, I didn't get a chance to tell you, so I'm going to tell you now that I had the conversation with CDA. We touch base at least once a week on a conference call. And I think they've identified a couple of parcels.
Angie, about 20 years ago, Paul Townsend and I were talking about the lack of, affordable apartments, not homes, but just we figured that there might have been about 50,000 short at that time. Has that changed? Have we done things to mitigate that situation?
There have been a lot of apartment projects that, we have approved in the town of Islip. I know that for a fact, many since I'm here, many before. Some we're starting to see come up. One of the most stellar examples is downtown Bayshore. We've just approved a project on Union Boulevard between 3rd and 4th Avenues, right opposite. When you talk about transit-oriented development, this particular development is, a textbook case for transit-oriented development. Right across the street is the Long Island Railroad Station. There's a bus stop right in front, and it is literally, a half a block, if it's that much, to downtown Bayshore, and another 2 blocks to the ferry. So, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. The only thing could be better is if there was a shuttle to take them to Long Island MacArthur Airport. But this complex, Tritech is the developer. It's on the site. It's over 10 acres. It's on the site of Touro School of Health Sciences. Touro has decided to sell that property and move their operation to their campus in Central Islip. So Touro College of Law in Central Islip is truly going to be an expansive college campus. In the future, they're planning dorms. So they're going to have their law, school there, and their health sciences and education programs all there in Central Islip. So Frank, tell your friend from Central Islip, there's still more exciting things happening there. I mean, you've got a ballpark, you got 2 courthouses, 2 beautiful hotels, a beautiful soccer complex right there on Carlton Avenue. The town is building a brand new animal shelter back behind the DPW yard, right off Carlton Avenue, behind where the soccer fields are, have just been built. So again, CI is exciting, Bayshore is exciting, downtown, Sayville. There are so many wonderful areas in our community. Brentwood, with its multicultural, restaurants and bodegas, and it's a great vibe.
Angie, I wanted to ask you about auxiliary, accessory apartments. Huntington embarked on a very aggressive program years ago, and they're very strict. They look for high quality accessory apartments, And that's been working out pretty well, I think. Have you done that?
We have done that. I mean, the development in Bayshore that I just spoke about, TriTech, is going to have, 400 units with concierge services, et cetera. A portion of it is dedicated to be affordable. The complex.
That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about people who have lived in your community forever, who have now no children in their homes, and they have room to create an apartment. And
that's what TriTech is talking about. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
You know, with all kinds of wonderful amenities. They're going to have a rooftop swimming pool, a pool downstairs, barbecue.
Yeah, but that's not a residence. That's not a personal residence. In other words,
accessory apartments.
Accessory apartments, people's homes.
So you're talking about a normal kind of residential home and creating accessory apartment?
Yes.
Yeah, that's been on the books in Islip for years.
You've had it?
Yes.
You have it in operation?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. But to the point of the apartments, right now there's a project being considered. There's a school in West Islip that's been closed for a number of years, probably 15 plus years. BOCES leased it for a number of years. BOCES decided, I mean, they're contracting some of their space, so they no longer wanted to lease the space. So the school district has decided to put it up for sale. That again, 10 acres off the tax rolls. If this does, happen, it will be on the tax rolls. So a developer has come in, put in a proposal with the school. We haven't seen it at the town yet, but from what I understand, on the 10 acres, they're looking to put 100 apartments and 26 townhomes. And there's a need for that in hamlets across the town where people have downsized. They don't want to deal with having the lawn mowed and worrying about who's going to shovel the snow. They want to be in a place that they feel safe, that there are amenities, that there's some socialization, there's a clubhouse. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because, again, with anything that's new, there are people that think this is wonderful. I mean, I had two seniors who where do I sign up? I want to go there. And then you have people that say, we don't want apartments. We don't want that vibe in our hamlet. We want to keep just residential houses. So, it's a balance that you have to strike, and it's an education process that has to take place. But I'll tell you, anytime you can get property, and again, that property in downtown Bayshore that TriTech is developing, that too was off the tax rolls. It, has not been on the tax rolls probably since the late 40s, early 50s, when the county first acquired it and created the mini center where they had, social services and DMV and courts and other kinds of uses for years until Toro purchased the property in the 90s.
By the way, Westchester County has a much higher percentage of rental apartments than we do. And it hasn't deteriorated that particular region. Why are people so afraid?
I don't know, but the next time there's a public hearing, you ought to come and talk. Because unfortunately, what happens is that you only hear from people that don't want it. A lot of times people are reticent to come forward. Lee, I'm sure you've encountered this sometimes. People are reticent to come forward and say, I'm okay with it, because they're afraid that their neighbor's gonna, look at them and say, what do you mean? I don't want it. Why are you saying you want it? We don't want this, so they quietly keep it to themselves. But 9 times out of 10, we have this debate going on now with a parcel in Bayshore, the east end of the hamlet of Bayshore, south on Saxon Avenue, 14.5 acres, owned by the Montfort missionaries. The Montfort missionaries, like many other, religious organizations, aging out, no new, people coming in. So they've put the property up for sale. So an assisted living organization wants to purchase it and put it in assisted living. Well, you would think that they were proposing a maximum security prison, the way the neighborhood reacted. And this parcel is next to a condominium complex, diagonally across the street from a garden apartment complex. And yes, further south, there are some expansive homes. There are some modest homes. You know, it's a kind of mixed neighborhood, but there's an awful lot of resistance and a lot of education that has to take place, because here's an opportunity to take a parcel of 14.5 acres and keep it whole and keep it, you know, having that look of landscaping and one, you know, construction on it set back that's going to look like, you know, a mini mansion. I mean, assisted living, there's one on Ocean Avenue in Bayshore that's been there 20 years. It looks brand new. The landscaping is exquisite. The impatiens and mums and beautiful flowers seasonally, it's gorgeous. And people resisted that. And a lot of times those that, you know, scream the loudest are the first ones to sign up their loved ones when it's time to, you know, go into that phase of life where they need to have some assistance in their lives. The same with Bristol on Lakeland Avenue in Sayville. That too was approved before I got here. But from what I understand, there was a lot of resistance there. And again, a gentleman who was one of the organizers of the resistance wound up putting his mother in there. So, you know, sometimes you have to have that intestinal fortitude. And if you know that something is right, you kind of have to go with your gut. So we'll see what happens.
So we have a follow-up question from Lee, which I assume is about real estate development. And then I think we have a new topic that I'd like to squeeze in.
I just have like two comments. One about the accessory apartments. In Huntington, they recently changed the town code with accessory apartments so that the homeowner can actually live in the apartment and rent out the main house to generate more income. And that could make a huge difference in helping solve the housing crisis.
Yeah.
And then the other is based on, you know, some of the comments you just made, Supervisor Carpenter. Study after study has shown that affordable housing actually tends to increase property values in areas where it's built instead of decrease property values. We all know, you know, in this recent campaign, there was a lot of dog whistling about, you know, saving the suburbs and so forth. And, you know, I could give it an hour talk about busting all of the myths, you know, surrounding affordable housing and what it does to communities, because for the most part, it is a net positive.
And two, with rental apartments, especially if they're, you know, age-restricted senior apartments. I was talking to someone yesterday, and I just intuitively felt that, you know, a senior going into an apartment is going to basically kind of stay there. They're not going to, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of turnover. And they said that that's really the case. That seniors, a lot of times going from a residential home may take a while to make that decision to go into an apartment, but once they do, they stay there.
Supervisor, then I have a question from someone, you know, in the audience. That's a change in direction, which is, what advice do you have for young women seeking a career in Long Island government or business?
Play golf.
You're not even joking.
I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Let me tell you a story. I feel that it's an equalizer among men. I play golf. I'm horrible at it, but I know enough to pick up the ball and keep moving. A lot of business is done on the golf course. Not so much now. Again, everything's kind of different with COVID, but don't ever feel that you can't do what you want to do if you're a woman. And the day I was sworn in as supervisor, 2015, it was March 1st. It was my granddaughter's 13th birthday. And just as we were walking into the town boardroom, somebody said to me, "Oh, congratulations, you're making history." And I'm like, history? I hadn't really thought about it, but when I looked up on the wall and saw all the photographs of the previous supervisors, they were all men. And so in the 337-8-year history of the town of Islip, I'm the first woman supervisor. And I said that, I turned to my granddaughter and I said, don't ever think that you can't be anything that you want to be. And when I joined the county legislature, I'd had a business for many, many years. And I joined the legislature. It was a special election. Rick Lazio had been elected to Congress and there was a vacancy, and they didn't want it. They, the party, did not want to give me the nomination. They didn't feel I had the candidate look, but ultimately I prevailed. There was a short window and I got the nomination and I run and I win. It's, you know, February. We're in the middle of capital budget at the county. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on here? You know, I was literally plopped into the middle of a whole, you know, whatever. Never having been, you know, that involved in government on the periphery. But so anyway, I'm in the caucus room. At that time, there was a supermajority of the party that I was in, and I'm in the caucus room, all men, with the exception of one other woman, but she was a different party and she didn't always, you know, sit in on the caucuses. But so here I'm in the caucus room and they are totally, totally ignoring me. And Charlie, you probably remember all of this and some of those characters, but one of the gentlemen, in fact, that day is sitting there. His name was Herb Davis. He's passed away. He was an ornery kind of guy, but adorable. And he's talking about getting a Big Bertha. And I said to him, Big Bertha, you're getting, he goes, you know what that is? I said, certainly, it's a driver. You're getting a new driver. That is really cool. Let me know how you like it, because I was looking at that. And he goes, you golf? And I go, absolutely, I golf. I'd golfed maybe 5 or 6 times at that point in a couples outing with my husband. And he goes, wow. And then all of a sudden they started talking to me. So I went home that night and I said to my husband, we're playing golf this weekend. And I organized, you know, a little golf outing amongst the caucus. And I ultimately wound up running a golf outing every year for myself as a fundraiser. But to me, it was like sending the message out that, you know, women can play golf. They can, you know, do anything. So it's a little anecdotal, but
it gives you that common ground that allows you to cross the aisle, so to speak, male, female, or party. Ernie, I have another question from the audience here. What, if anything, is happening with the Pilgrim State property? Is that still moving?
That, you know, it's ironic because when I was in the legislature, Jerry Wolkoff, and God rest his soul, he passed away recently, you know, had a vision for that property. And it was in my legislative district. And when he purchased it, he invited me to drive with him because he wanted to show it to me. And he, oh my God, he was like a kid in a candy store. And then this is going to be here and there. And it's like Reston, Virginia. And oh, it's going to be a city and people are going to love it. And, you know, young people aren't going to feel the need to move away and seniors can stay. And it was very exciting. And lo and behold, I'm in the legislature, you know, many, many years after that. I go and I'm the treasurer for 9 years. I come to the county and what's the first thing I encounter is Heartland. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Nothing ever happened in all those years. But finally, we did approve. And that was a very, very difficult process, but it was an educational process that had to take place. Our planning commissioner was great. We had an open educational, you know, session explaining what was all about. And initially they wanted approval for the entire project, which was 9,000 apartments. And we felt that the better option was, because he was going to be building it in 3 phases, to just approve phase 1. And that was ultimately what we did. And I recently had occasion to speak to David Wolkoff, who is as committed to this project as his father was, and has all intentions of going forward. And the hiccup right now is Suffolk County and the county legislature in an effort, and this was in the early 2000s, in an effort to encourage that kind of cluster development, they offered an incentive for hookups to the sewers. And from what I understand, the county is saying that no, it doesn't pertain to him. So that is the stall that's happening right now.
I too spoke to David, and one of the things that I wanted to make him aware of is that without good transportation to and from that property, you're always going to have some resistance. Do we have a good plan for that?
There is there's rail right there that most people aren't aware of. So it will be
the station, or is it you have to build?
No, the rail is down. It's down. It it would have to be brought back to life, but it certainly is there.
There's a great video about the Heartland video, a YouTube video. It's short, and when you visualize that, I really think you get it. I live close enough, although I'm in Dix Hills, to that area to be impacted. So I've looked it up, and that was really good video. I just want to mention to the attendees that so far people have asked questions in the chat, but there is a way that you can raise your hand in Zoom. If you do that, then I can unmute you to ask a question, or if you use the chat, you can ask to be unmuted, or allow me to ask the question for you. We have about 10 minutes left, but I wanted to make sure that if anybody was waiting to ask a question, they understood the mechanisms that we have in place here. Well, I had another question for you. And I want to commend everyone on the call so far, because we're at such a contentious point in our national history, but it hasn't come up so far in the call, the presidential politics. But in particular, when Trump took over, he made a big show of flying into our Long Island airport with a cotillion of supposed law enforcement people fighting MS-13. I think those of us on Long Island know that that was a fight that was underway. So I'm wondering what your take is on that, and whether the real credit goes to federal or local for the MS-13 cleanup. Nope, what happened? You muted? Hold on. You should be able to mute now.
Okay,
there you go.
Thank you. I'd like to say it's a partnership. When that tragic killing happened in Central Islip, Congressman King came to a meeting at the Knights of Columbus in Central Islip. There had to be 300 people packed in that room. Certainly we wouldn't be doing it today. But the district attorney was there, the police commissioner was there, I was there. And it really is a partnership. It was a team effort. We worked very, very closely with the Suffolk County Police Department, our law enforcement, our public safety officers, communicate with them constantly. We've put security systems in our parks. In fact, there was security, there was cameras in the park, and that enabled them to catch the perpetrators. They were able to get the license plate number of the person that was in there.
But I mean, how much of that was specifically the Trump administration as opposed to what federal law enforcement does?
I can't delineate who gets 10% of the credit or 50% of the credit. All I can say is that, you have to work in partnership, and there's no silver bullet. There's no magic answer to anything. The magic answer is communication and working together. And, we try very hard to do that in the town. Some reference was made earlier to crossing party lines. There are no party lines as far as I'm concerned when it comes to operating the town and running the town. And I was at a press conference about a week and a half ago with Assemblyman Phil Ramos, and he stood up there and, he said, there's no Republican or Democratic way to fill a pothole or build a park. And, Supervisor Carpenter and I have a tremendous partnership, and we do. From the day that I got in here, understood how important it was to work closely with everyone that represents.
I think that works very well on a local level, Angie.
We have another question from Mohinder. I'm sorry, I've got 7 minutes left, and my fault that he didn't get a chance yet. So I want to make sure he has time.
Right.
Hi, how are you?
Good morning, Madam Supervisor. Good morning, Ernie. Madam Supervisor, the airport can play a very, very important role in our Long Island economy as well as lifestyle. We have a lot of immigrant population here. So I think a special task force or a special committee should be formed with all the stakeholders and the community and business leaders. So I will request you for that. Maybe I'll talk to Ernie and we'll try to work on something on that if you allow us.
Well, to that point, Mohinder, I couldn't agree with you more. The airport is incredible. The airport's one of the reasons I accepted the challenge to come to the town of Islip to be the supervisor, because I felt that there was so much potential that was not being tapped. You know, Long Island MacArthur Airport was recently ranked number 6 in USA Today's best 10 best small airports across the country. So we're very, very proud of that.
I'm going to have Shelley come and speak at Limber in December, by the way.
I know, and that's important because it helps get that message out. And we do have a task force. It was one of the first things I did when I got here. And there is a broad, you know, representation of stakeholders on that task force. You know, Kevin Law is a member of the Long Island MacArthur Airport Task Force, and he participates regularly. So unfortunately, because of COVID, a lot of what we were doing has kind of been in an idling mode. But unlike some small regional airports, throughout this entire pandemic, Long Island MacArthur Airport has operated every single day at diminished capacity, but it has been operating. We're also contributing to the economy in many ways in the construction projects that are happening there. The airport is totally self-sufficient, does not use any taxpayer dollars, and we have had completed or underway or planned about $50 million worth of renovations and construction projects happening at the airport. We just had the groundbreaking. The Lieutenant Governor came down for the groundbreaking for our ground transportation center, where we're putting all ground transportation in one facility, you know, rental cars, taxis, shuttle buses, et cetera, all in one area. So there's a lot of exciting things happening with that airport. And as soon as, God willing, we get through this pandemic, sooner rather than later, you're going to see a lot of excitement coming from there.
Angie, I was on that task force, and I haven't received any communications at all about meetings. Are they not happening, or is it something
there may have been something else that you were on, but not that I'm aware of that you were on the task force. But I'll go back to that list and check and see, Ernie.
Okay, do that.
All right. And I'll check with Rob too, Schneider. There may have been something else, you know, prior to Shelley's tenure or my tenure that existed, but I'll look into it.
I think there's room for just one more question from Ken Navor. Ken, your mic should be live.
Yeah, hey Angie, how you doing?
Good, Ken. Nice to see you.
Yeah, the question I have is it true that car dealer on Sunrise Highway is moving to where the Costco plan move is? The Jeep dealer moving next to the fitness place on Sunrise?
What hamlet are you talking about?
The Jeep dealer across from the BMW dealer in West Islip on Sunrise.
I really don't know. I haven't heard any plans. You know, they haven't come to us.
One of the guys that were working there told me they were going to move next to the fitness place on Sunrise Highway across from Home Depot.
I'll check on that.
Yeah, we're all the Jeep cars on now. They got a lot full of cars.
Oh, okay. I'll check on that.
Okay, thank you.
One thing if I have a second to mention, with the pandemic, we work also, the question was asked about working with the hospitals, working with our business community, our chambers of commerce. We were so quick to allow for outdoor dining, didn't charge for permits, you know, and likewise with the tents and everything. I know what a struggle it is for our restaurants, and we've been working very, very closely with them, getting PPE equipment to them, working with the CDA. Unlike some towns, we did not get any direct CARES Act funding. Had we gotten some, there would not have been a tax increase in next year's budget. But unlike Nassau County, the town of Hempstead got $133 million in direct funding because of their number of residents. You had to meet a threshold of 500,000. We have 335,000. So all of the funding for any of the towns in Suffolk County went directly to Suffolk County, $257 million. Unfortunately, the county is not sharing it with any of the towns, although the Supervisors Association that meets regularly has petitioned the county for a share of it, because they're doing that upstate, the towns or the counties are giving grants to their townships and villages. You know, $1 million or $2 million would have made the difference in our budget as far as the tax increase. So that was kind of unfortunate.
Frank, do we have any outstanding questions that maybe we'll handle one more?
No, I think we have completed all the questions. I'm looking here to make sure, but I don't see any more outstanding questions. I think it was interesting what the supervisor just said. As we're hearing these vote tallies come in, 300,000 and change for a town on Long Island is far bigger than a lot of these counties that we hear reporting their vote totals. It's really staggering.
We're the third largest town in the state of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And very, very active. And I see Brad Hemingway is on the call. Brad heads up our foreign trade zone, only town that has a foreign trade zone. You know, John Walzer is our new director of economic development. Bill Mannix retired. I'm sure you're all aware of that. John's been in place in the department for a number of years, is very, very capable. We are alive and willing to do business and help anyone who wants to do business in the town of Islip.
Great. Angie, I want to thank you for being participating in this meeting this morning. I think you've shed a light on a lot of different areas. And I want to thank all of our sponsors and the people who are attending. On our next program, we're going to have Geraldine Hart. She's the Suffolk County Police Commissioner. And police work is very much in the news today. And I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation. We want to know what they are doing. And I think I think we have a good person in Geraldine Hart, and I think we're going to have an interesting conversation. I want to thank everybody for attending, Frank for being co-moderator here, and all of the people that asked questions and lent something to the conversation. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks again.
Tony. Thanks for the opportunity. Enjoyed it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. I'm still here.